Didn't the other kids tell you not to come here? Go back before it's too late!
At the heart of horror, there has always been more than spooks and scares.
Sometimes, it's not what you see, but what you hear.
Welcome to Sound Scary.
Each week, we talk to the artists, the musicians, the fans, the people who haunt the shadowy corners of your mind.
Join us as we delve into the deepest,
Darkest.
and most unforgettable earscapes.
Welcome to Sound Scary.
So, welcome to another episode of Sound Scary Quarantine Edition. I am your host, Ryan Cultrera.
And I am James Oster, aka JimmyO. And I Ryan, I gotta tell you, back in 2003, I saw a movie that fucked me up. Like, I remember seeing the movie, stopping, and I swear to God, someone was stalking me that day. I swear to God. Today, we have a new wrong turn. A new wrong turn that's not connected. And I'm really stoked to have Mike Nelson here, the director of Wrong Turn 2021. Mike, thanks for joining us, dude.
How's it going, guys? It's good, thanks.
Welcome to the show.
Now, I guess let's start this off, because, look, I saw one trailer. I tried to avoid trailers nowadays because they give away too much. So I watched a bit of a trailer, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm already in. It's a Wrong Turn movie. This is not it. It goes on another turn. You take another turn. Wow. How did that come about, and how was that decision made? That's an interesting idea.
I mean, look, the original writer, Alan McElroy, wrote the script, and I had gotten the draft late 2017. And, read it, came in with my own, preconceptions of what I thought it was going to be, knowing the Wrong Turn franchise. I do too. Like, I love the first movie. I think it's really great. So that's what I figured. I was like, so is this like the seventh one, or what is this actually going to be? And, knowing what, the other movies kind of turned into, I was just kind of like, oh. So I read it and I was like, whoa, this is nothing like anything that I was expecting, and nothing like any of those movies. And even the first one, like, it was so different. Like, the first 40 pages were very like Wrong Turn. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what to think about that right away. It took me a few days to think about it. The thing is like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, that was the thing. Like, after I read it, because there's that first feeling of, gosh, would this work? Would this actually work with? And sure enough, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I decided, I'd love to go after this. I think this would be a lot of fun. There was a lot of opportunities. There was a lot of my DNA all over it. Just in terms of, guys with these animal head skulls in the woods, and it's a survival flick, and there's all these traps, and I love booby traps in movies. Like, it's it's like these weird little love. And so I met with the producer and talked with Alan, and what was really cool about their approach was they were 100% on board to do something like this, like super bold. They didn't want to try to go back on it and say, well, maybe we should make it a little bit more like the original, because what are people going to think? They were just like, nope. And I loved that, because I felt the same way. Like, I felt like, if you're going to do this, we got to do it. And they were completely on board. Like, they were 100% in that mindset, and they kept that mindset throughout the entire process. Like, there was never a point where, should we do something? No, this was the movie.
Wow.
And the filmmaker, that's a refreshing thing. You want to join that team. Like, you want to be on board with that executive who wants to take this kind of a risk, because that doesn't happen that often.
In going this route of reinventing a pretty famous and popular franchise, were there any elements from those first 6 movies that you felt it was important to translate into your new take on it?
It's interesting, because when I pitched the movie, I kind of pitched the idea to make it not look like any of those movies, like very intentionally. And then when I talked with, you know, my DP, who is a longtime friend of mine, and we've worked together for over 10 years now, and I was lucky enough to get him to, you know, I got to give props to both Robert and then our other producer, James Harris, who fought for getting Nick to shoot this thing, because we've just been a team, you know. And I really wanted to work with him again. And so and our discussions were, you know, I think we do need to take a different approach and really, you know, shoot this a little bit more organically, shoot it a little bit more off the hip, shoot it a little bit, you know, more, slightly more herky jerky, and just like, and you know, also like play with lensing choices. Like, you know, we switched between spherical lenses at one point and we switched to anamorphic lenses. And that was something that, you know, Nick brought to the table. I thought was a really interesting idea. And it's not something that you like, it's not something where suddenly you're like, whoa, like everything is crazy and different now, but it's something that you feel, you know what I mean? It's like this thing, it's like you can feel it in as opposed to like full on see it. And yeah, you know, and then, you know, we were always playing with, you know, like shutter angle and you know, pulling kind of the Private Ryan look at times, and I was amping up the grain during those moments, like we'd do that, or if we were outside at night, I would amp up the grain, really trying to like play with this idea that like if we were out in the woods shooting on film without a lot of lights, like we would have to be like switching to like, you know, higher ISO stock that would be grainier and like do all these really cool things with it. And so visually we wanted to go in with a very different language than the other films. We didn't want this one to look like those other films.
And it doesn't at all. I also feel like I think the one thing it does have in common with the films, especially the original, is how just the beautiful fucking landscape you got here.
The main character of a Wrong Turn film is Appalachia. So, I mean, you're right. Like, if there is something in common, it is, to me, the main character. And I know a lot of people are going to give me shit for that, because a lot of people would say the main character is Three Finger. But honestly, I think the one thing that makes Wrong Turn like cohesive, and even though this one's so different, that still keeps it in that world, is it's young people who go to Appalachia that run into some interesting people. And so to me, that to me, it did, like, and that's why I think you can still call this Wrong Turn, because I think it is a Wrong Turn movie. You know what I mean? Again, I think there's going to be a lot of people who are gonna reach out to me after this and be like, "You're wrong, man. You're wrong. You're so wrong." But I'm sorry, like that's just the way I feel about it. You know?
Well, that's what I kind of liked about it, is that it keeps this kind of spiritual core, but takes it in a different direction than people would expect. That's how you keep things fresh.
That was sort of the idea. Was like, you know, you think you know the story, but then we subverted your expectations.
This is a very tense, serious film. Well, I'm assuming that was always part of a return to the core values of the original film, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we wanted to ground it. We really wanted to make it like something that could exist in the real world, kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, that was important to Alan. That was important to me. And I mean, it was on the page. You know, it was on the page that this felt more a much more grounded world and less cartoony.
I just wanted to talk kind of about the tradition of practical effects in this film franchise, because the first one had, you know, the legendary Stan Winston studio on board. Was it important to you to kind of keep these films as practical as possible in the era of CG horror?
Absolutely. Like, there's very few CG effects in horror films that I feel like are effective. You know what I mean? Like, there's a gloss that just makes it feel like, well, that wasn't happening. I've always been in the mindset, like, you know, my last film, Domestics, it was always about, like, I wanted to use real squibs, like, and I think we were able to do that, you know, with the exception of, like, a few hits that, you know, are too dangerous to do.
Sure.
And again, there's just something, like, you know, it's over, you know, it's a little too much, but it's happening there. You see the actors reacting to it. You see blood spatter, like, hit in a way that, like, it wouldn't, you know, in CG. And then there's something just really fun about being there on the day and witnessing all this as a filmmaker. You're actually there painting with real material on the day, and there's something really satisfying about that. You know, we tried to do as many practical things in here as possible, and, you know, a lot of those practical effects were, you know, enhanced with just compositing, and it was compositing practical effects with practical effects. So those effects were still like nothing. A lot of those things, most of them weren't. There was no CG at all. It was just compositing two shots together that we had to take differently to sell the idea. There's like a head smash in it. It's like, well, that's the real guy there, and that's actually a real latex head that we smash. And
Wow.
we just had to put the two shots together and blend them together a little bit, and there you have it. Like,
Wow.
I think really the only big CG thing we have is a giant log, and of course that's in the trailer, and that was just the way that it had to be. And even that, as a CG effect, like we had to really think. First of all, on the page, there was no way we could afford what the script said.
What did it say originally?
Yeah, I mean, everybody was like, how are we going to do this? Like, this is a huge effect shot. And we really had to think about how to shoot that. And for me, it was like, thinking about how you shoot like a monster or shoot like a, how you would shoot this, but like from the character's perspective. Like, we didn't make that sequence about a log. Like, the first time you see it, it's through a cell phone screen, so you can immediately like downgrade the resolution in the phone screen.
Smart.
You know what I mean? To like see this thing. But if you also notice, one of the things that I love that Technicolor did in that shot was you see the log come over the top of the phone too, so you can actually see how large it is, but it's out of focus. We then could put our money into that really awesome money shot where it's right behind Jen. You know what I mean? And it's like it's a trailer shot. We all knew it. We were like, that's a trailer shot. But all the other moments where you see the log, they were so quick, and it was all about watching characters fall and like that brutality and like smashing through things and flipping and rolling and bashing off of trees. That's where you created this feeling of like disorientation and craziness. And then oh yeah, that's right, there's a log here. And then and that was really how we thought about it. And that was, I mean, we had to think about it that way.
It looks really good, and I also feel like you kind of took a very different approach from the kills in the previous films, especially the later sequels. This is a more grounded, this is a more realistic, this is, how people die, and they're not getting sliced into several pieces and their body parts flying up in the air,
Yeah.
Was there one kill that was more difficult for you guys to kind of put together and make happen?
It's funny. Each kill actually has their own very unique story to them. So like you have like, for instance, there's one in a pit full of like punji stakes. Our actor was like her whole leg, her whole like backside was like, it was falling asleep because she had to be in this crazy rig, and she had to stay there because each time she got out, it was this huge thing to get her back in and like readjust her clothing and make all these. So it was like, and so she's like, oh my god, I'm going numb, guys. I don't know how much longer I'm doing this. Everyone's like, oh my god, like, and it's this really emotional scene at the same time. She's sobbing and crying and like freaking out, and this other actor's trying to perform with her, and her legs falling asleep, and so, and then you have this head smash, which was like, we only have 26 days to shoot this movie, and it's the scene with two of the main actors, and we're shooting all these different plates, ones with actors in them, ones without. Then I get taken. Mike, we need you to go. Modine has to rap. You got to go out and you got to shoot that one shot outside. Oh my gosh, I got to. No, we need you right now. Okay, so we run outside. We shoot that. Kevin, our visual effects supervisor, literally has to keep shooting plates of the head and of the actor doing the swinging, and then the actors like in the foreground out of focus. Like, then I run back in, and the actor's like, what is happening? I'm just like, I'm so sorry, like, this is insane. Like, it was so challenging to work this fast, but to try to achieve the feeling that I wanted with all these different kill moments that that they didn't want them to feel cheesy. I didn't want them to feel too over the top. I want them to feel so like grounded and just like you have to watch and witness what's happening. That's it. It's not they're not money shots, like a lot of the Wrong Turn movies. They're just face value. It is what it is. And that's where I feel like I was able to achieve some of that feeling, or at least that's the feeling I like to it. When I watch a film, like I like that kind of vibe.
For sure.
But to go back to the one that like really stood out to me as being a difficult one, and that was that first one, with the tree. That one was all about performance and all about the reaction of seeing this friend that's been completely pulverized, and how they react to that. And we sat on that hill for an hour with all the actors and with the dead body there, and we started talking about it. We just started talking about like how would you react to this? What because everybody had their own kind of ideas. Everybody wanted to make sure that they could achieve that idea, and I wanted that because I wanted there to be a disconnect. Like everybody's experiencing this, but they all are experiencing it in such a different way, and they all react such different ways. And the one thing that I feel like always happens in movies is everybody starts screaming and reacting the same way. It's a dead body. Oh my God. And what was so jarring and so like heartbreaking about it, and so I feel like real about it, was every single character like disintegrates in a different way, and they all pull apart. And so to me, like that was another one that was challenging because it took an hour to kind of get there, and we were there on the day. And I remember our AD Doug was just like, "Oh my God, we gotta go. I'm like, we need this. This is a moment. Like we have to do this."
It works.
And, another thing I love about this movie is that, horror films tend to operate in this sort of black and white, like good guy, bad guy. Your film has a little bit of more of a gray zone with your villains. Were you kind of hoping to challenge audiences' perception of these, like, deep backwoods bad guy tropes that we always find in these horror movies?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, that was what Alan wanted to do. That was one of the big things that interested me about the script, why I thought it was so different and unique. I like that it challenged you as a viewer, or as a reader in my case, like to sort of like understand the villain's motive, even if it was flawed. I wanted there to be that connection, even though there is that level of brutality there that you might not connect with. There's this level of, I kind of get what they're doing here. I don't like it, but I kind of get it.
We talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but judging by your background here, you are a big movie fan. So I wanted to kind of talk to you about what movies influenced you going into this project.
So I would say, I mean, you have some of the usuals, like you have, Deliverance and some of the typical like survival flicks. I guess you could even say like, maybe there's a little bit of Hills Have Eyes and so forth. But like, but for me, one movie that was a huge influence for me because it follows a very similar, it follows a very similar line, is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Really?
I can see that.
Okay, yeah. Like now that you point that out.
First of all, I adore that movie, and it was one of the first, we'll call it the first horror films that I really ever saw, and I saw it way too young. I think I saw it and I was like 4 or 5. But it stuck with me, and I mean, I don't think you should feel bad because I think, it definitely left an impression, and it helped me, and we'll say it a little bit in my career.
Yeah, a little bit.
I love the films of Jeremy Saulnier, like Blue Ruin and Green Room. I think those were two examples, or two things that like I came into here, watching those movies was a big thing. Just because they're very heavy on character and tension, and again, like you don't know where it's going, or in the case of Green Room, it's like it's like you against another group of people. It's like that fight for your life. What do you have to do?
For sure.
Another thing too, like I love Twilight Zone. I especially love the Twilight Zone, the movie.
Oh yeah.
And you look at like the Vic Morrow one, which I like, for many years I went back and forth, like, I was like, oh no, I think the Joe Dante one's my favorite. No, the George Miller one on the plane, that's my favorite one. But honestly, like I got to this point, like as I got older, where the Vic Morrow one to me it's the most chilling of all of them. There was, I felt like there was some of that in this movie, I mean, there's not a mystical element where like, how did that happen? But I felt like, these young adults that, that get taken, and go through this situation, and, you have all these like kind of social, these social parallels, to reality, and like how humans react to one another. And I mean, which is every Twilight Zone episode. It's not just you run into a bunch of killers and it's a slasher movie. That's a slasher movie. That's not a Twilight Zone episode, No, you like run into like there's a group of people that do things a little different than you, and it's that butting of heads, and it's that different state of mind that causes this conflict. and that conflict becomes, very deadly. I mean, you could say like it's about the assumptions we all make, and it's about how all these people in this movie make all these terrible assumptions about each other, and it gets every single person in this movie in trouble.
One of the things we usually do to finish off this show is we talk about a scary story that's happened to you, a fun time on set. This is a paranormal channel sometimes, so I don't know, do you have a ghost story or anything that you'd like to share?
There'll be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited.
My wife and I, this was a few years ago, we were watching this, I can't even remember the name of it. It was like this paranormal show. And it was about this guy that, he goes into houses and all these things and can sense the spirits and do all this stuff. And it's done in a very, documentary kind of way. And, it's supposed to be real. Whether it is or not, I don't really know, but it didn't matter. Like, it was spooky stuff. It was fun. And there was this episode where he goes into this house where supposedly there was like the ghosts of like pets. And there's all these weird things like, crosses that would get turned upside down. Like and they, like they would see their dead animals, occasionally. It was this very strange thing. And, they would talk about like, oh man, you could like suddenly at some point, like, you would smell this feces, and, then it would smell like, one of their dogs, went to the bathroom in the house, and then they would hear like a growling, and then there was nothing there. There was all this weird stuff. And so, of course, we watched that in bed and then went to bed. So that night, like, I remember it as clear as day. I remember having a dream. I remember having this dream, and I'm out in this park, and I mean, I don't remember exactly everything that was happening, but I remember being in this park with some friends, and then, I got separated, and I was on my own, and I stopped, and and there was like literally in the middle of this path, just a black cat sitting there, just staring at me. And I just kind of looked at it, and I started to move away, and then it started to move towards me, but like very predatory, you know what I mean?
Ooh.
And then I just turned around and ran, and then it started to straight up chase me. And you look back, and like, because it's a dream, it's weird, and so like suddenly the cat is like 3 times its size, and it's like more of like a monster, and you're just like, oh my god! And like you're running, and then it gets you, or it gets right up to you, and then like I woke up, and my wife and I, she's like, you smell something? And I'm like, and it did. It smelled kind of like poop or something. Like it did. It smelled like kind of like cat poop. And we have but here it is. We have 2 cats, so it's very possible that it's that. We look, and both of our cats are sitting on the stand next to our window, and they're just dead still, like staring out the window. And we look over there, and I shit you not, there is a black cat outside of our window staring at both of our cats, just sitting there.
No way.
Cats start losing their minds. Like our one cat looks over to our other cat and just starts beating the shit out of her. Like just goes, rawr, rawr, and then chases her, and then the other cat is just still, it just sits there and stares. Like I looked out at it, and it just stared at me. Our other cats take off in the living room. Our one bigger cat just literally just starts like beating and biting the other cat and just like clawing it. Like we had to like pull, we had to kick them apart because they would not stop fighting.
Wow.
So we finally got them separated, and we laid back down, and Katie was like, that's really strange. And I was like, well, do you want to hear something even weirder? I was like, I literally just had a dream that a black cat was chasing me. And like, we just looked at each other like, and then, of course, we never watched that show again.
Yeah, time to cut it off.
It was a very, very strange occurrence. There could have, honestly, like with stuff like that, could it have been all like, it just happened to happen all in the same night, and all just came together. Absolutely. But there's that piece of that story that we love, that it did feel very like supernatural and odd. So we like to keep it that way.